Okay, looks like we got a good group of people here today. I'll give just a couple more minutes. I think there's a couple more people that I think are going to show up, so I'm going to give them another minute. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Good morning, everybody. I'm Lucas Pedraza, New Mexico Main Street Project Coordinator. Today, we're just going to go over the application for capital outlay for FY 2023. So there are some changes this year that I want to bring your attention to, and sort of want to go over how we're doing things, because things have changed in the last couple of years, and in terms of how we develop our project pipeline and how we develop projects with you all. So I'll just give you sort of a general overview of how we've come to how we're doing this now in terms of this process. So we're really concerned with trying to make sure that all communities get a chance to do infrastructure projects, all of our communities, our Main Street communities. So we really want to spend a lot of time to make sure that we're carefully planning these projects. As you know, this is the first year we've gotten 10 million, and usually we don't get this kind of award or chance to really award this much. And so for us, it's really important to keep demonstrating to the state legislator and that we can produce high quality projects and turn them around pretty quickly. And the ways we have to do that is to work with you all, your local governments, to sort of prime the pump. And so we have on our side a project pipeline that we work with every year. And when we do our annual site visits with you and we talk to you, we're always trying to figure out where you guys are fitting in. We want to make sure that everybody gets a chance and that everybody's getting their needs met in terms of public infrastructure investment. So with that in mind, I'll go ahead and start our presentation here. Okay, so the proposal due date is July 29th at 5 p.m. We're giving you about a month to go ahead and put this together. And at the end of this, I am going to go through real quick to show you what the application is going to actually look like. So this year we actually have an application for you to actually go through and fill out. So I wanted to go through this first before I gave everybody that application so they can go ahead and start working on it. There's also an expectation that before you fill that out, you have a conversation with myself and Daniel. So if you're planning to apply, and if you had conversation with us before, we can have just a quick sort of check-in just to make sure you're applying for the right category and the right amount and for the right phase of funding. So we just want to go over those things with you to make sure you have a quality application that is applying for exactly what you need. So here is the legislative appropriation language here. We got $10 million to plan, design, construct, and improve infrastructure in downtown Main Street districts and in local arts and cultural districts statewide. So after you are awarded, if you're awarded, grant award will be available immediately after grant agreements are executed, and New Mexico Main Street issues a notice of obligation. So when you're awarded, there's still a process that goes on. There's agreements that have to be filled out, and a lot of this side will be working with you to make sure that there's a match there, and also that everybody's on board and understands what is expected. So a lot of that work would also go on with Julie Blanke and myself and Daniel. So after you're awarded, there's still a little bit more work to be done, but you will be getting your award. And there's a little bit of sort of learning between us and your local governments, usually in your organization, in terms of what's expected and how the process is going to go forward. Just to put that out there for you guys to understand. So eligible programs, you have to be a New Mexico Main Street accredited program. Also, state authorized arts and cultural districts are authorized to apply for this as well. But if you're in a community where you have an ACD, Arts and Cultural District, and a Main Street program, you can only apply for one capital outlay application. You can only have one, and it's expected that everybody's working together on that project. So I just want to make sure that's clear for everybody. We don't want programs competing with each other. Is essentially why we do that. Main Street organizations must be accredited, have a full-time executive director, or be in compliance with your MOU with your local government in terms of having the staffing available. Because the reason we do this as well is because there's a lot of coordination that needs to go on. Somebody needs to keep track of the project, especially when you're in the design phase of your project. There's a lot of work that in terms of putting together meetings with community and make sure all the right people are there at these meetings. And the projects are receiving input from everybody in the community. All the stakeholders need to be engaged. So we need a full-time or equivalent executive director in these communities. Local government must be a partner in submitting application and agree to receive and manage funds if awarded. So all our capital outlay goes to a local government. We can't award programs. We can't give money to local programs. Local governments must be part of the process. This is also to make sure that they understand what is happening and that they're invested in the project and they know how to carry out and what's expected from the grant. So we also require a letter of agreement from your local government, and it is expected that they're giving input into your application. Previous capital outlay must be expended and invoiced by the date of application submittal. The only exception to this is really current Great Blocks on Main Street projects where there's partially funded sort of phased projects. So we understand that you might be completing a phase still and you're applying for the next phase of funding. And in those situations, we are okay with awarding funds. And of course, if you're just down to your last $12 on your grant, you're not gonna not take your application for something like that. We're just talking about making sure the projects are completed before we award you with another one. All proposed projects should be connected to your economic transformation strategies and your district's metropolitan redevelopment area plan or master plan. And when applicable, projects must meet historic preservation requirements and engage New Mexico Department of Transportation. So when you're in those areas, we'll make sure when we talk to you about your project that we're considering these things in your community if they are indeed factors that you need to consider. And when you apply for your projects, you'll see that in application, there is going to be a space for you to fill in where your project, the full sort of project budget. A lot of times these projects are not going to just be completed with just our funding. There's a lot of other work that needs to go on. And our funding is usually going to go towards anything that's above ground, meaning like the benches, the streets, sidewalks, lighting, those kinds of things. And a lot of times there's things that need to go on underneath the ground in terms of your sewage or water or other things that need to happen. So, you know, there's a lot more to those projects and we want to see that everything is getting funded. And we want to make sure that we're working with you to get everything fully funded. And this is a competitive application process. However, this is something, you know, really you should know if you're getting funded because you should be working with us from the beginning. There is a little bit of competitiveness because there is sometimes not enough to go around, and some projects may be in the pipeline for the next round of funding. Each offer there's matching requirements here for all projects. The minimum is 20%. So if your project's awarded $100,000, their match equivalent should be $20,000. Priority will be given to projects with matching funds available. However, it doesn't necessarily have to be a full cash match. 60% of the match can be from in-kind and also things that are going on in terms of professional planning or other, you know, staff time that's being put into the project by the local government or your local Main Street. sorry, those can be considered as part of the match. Also this year, we're also considering investments made by your local government in your downtown district. So if there's other projects going on in your downtown, we will consider that as part of your match. Let's say you're getting other streets done outside of your main street, and it's in your downtown district, we will consider that as part of the match. So really, while we're requiring a match is to make sure there's enough funding to actually complete the project, but also because we want to see that there's a real commitment from your local government to improve your downtown district. And this is just a project for your Main Street program, that this is a combined project from your program and the local government. So the only exception for this match is that communities with great blocks are expected to actually put in extra cash, the actual full 20% cash match. And this is because these great blocks are a much more intensive sort of design processes, and there's a lot more work that needs to go involved. And so they can go over budget during the design process of your project. So we want to make sure that that money is there to be able to get the whole project done and designed correctly. And so for great blocks projects, we are expecting a full cash match. And I just want to also note that we don't want to turn people away because they're worried about not making the match. These are conversations we need to be having with you guys. So you should know ahead of time if this is going to be an issue in your application, and we should be able to have a conversation about it. So there's new funding categories this year. And these are the way we're doing this now is to make this a little bit clearer for everybody to understand where they're at in the process with the designing of their infrastructure project. These projects can get really complicated and take years to complete, and even years to develop. So we have separated projects into two phases. There's a planning and design phase and a construction phase. And then there's three categories within each of those. So there's small projects that can be done quickly and require less money, less than 300,000 usually. And then there's medium to large projects that are over 300,000 up to 900,000. And then there's great blocks projects that are up to 1.6 million complete when they're fully completed. So in the planning phase, you're not applying for that whole amount. You're usually applying just to get the design money, to get the construction documents ready, so you can enter the construction phase of your project and get it funded. So if you're just starting off, you haven't had a design phase for your project, you're starting in the planning and design phase. And if you have design projects already, and if you have done this already in the past, you can attach those design documents and put them into the application or attach it to your email when you submit. So you should know who you are if you've already been accepted and got a grant before in the past. You will be going into the construction phase, and that's where you'll be filling out that section of the application. Okay, next slide. Okay, so for small infrastructure projects, they need funding for design. Maximum proposed amount requested from us, completed project should be no more than 350,000. That's what we're considering a small infrastructure project. And that is with design funding. So you get $40,000 as to design the project, and then you get another 310,000 to complete the construction. Anything over than that, it is expected that your local government is going to be providing the money for that, or you will be finding other grants to complete that project. So these could be small parks in your community, those kinds of things. So within this sort of project, we're expecting the completed construction documents within 2 years of the award. There's also a little thing here. So small infrastructure projects can sometimes, because they're so small scale, there isn't as much of a lengthy design process. And so we can allow for a smaller project let's say you're just putting benches in, and you just need somebody to come in and just evaluate where the sites are going to be for those benches. That's a project that we may be able to fund in one round. But usually you can start off with just design of the project, and then the next year you'll apply for the construction. Medium to large projects are between $600,000 and $900,000. These are going to be like a much larger park or a block or two with lighting and those kinds of things. And they're going to require a licensed architect, a licensed landscape architect, or an engineer to look at the project and create construction documents. So if you're in this category, it's important that you let us know that there's going to be phases to this project and submit the total budget for this project and make it clear what you're applying for this year and what's getting funded this year. So the largest projects are Great Blocks on Main Street projects. I want to make it clear that if you're going for a Great Blocks on Main Street project, it is expected that you're invited actually to apply for this category. So you should be having conversations with myself, with Daniel, or our consultants who are helping you design or choosing the area that you're going to actually work in. So these projects are designed to dramatically change your downtown. They're 3-block commercial areas within a Main Street district usually. The amount of work that goes into these require that the design phase have at least 110,000 in the design phase just to go through it, because there's going to be multiple community meetings and there's going to be a lot of technical work that needs to go into looking at the project area and identifying issues that could come up and what other things that need to be improved as the project goes along. So this is why we're also asking for a $20,000 cash match, because there's going to be this is a major investment, because these projects will average around 1.6 million, and the community definitely needs to be involved, and we need to make sure that this money is well spent. So this is a much lengthier process, and this is why we require that you talk to us first and be invited to actually apply for this. So these are qualifying infrastructure projects. Normally, as I said, it's going to be above ground, but there could be storm and sewer drainage projects and things that deal with utilities. And that's okay, but really what we want to focus on is improving the overall aesthetic of your downtown. So pedestrian safety projects can apply, street amenities, and also placemaking kind of projects. And you should work with us to decide what kind of project is best for your community. I mean, these can start with just a conversation with myself and Daniel, but also with Amy Bell or Will Powell. We will help you decide what is the best kind of project that meets your community's needs. And these are the kinds of projects we are willing to fund. So if you're already meeting with us and talking to us, you're on the right track, and you're going to be able to qualify. Your project will qualify for this funding. So we will review and rank projects, and we will look to make sure that there's everything in place in terms of the agreement with your local government, that there is support from your council of governments, and there's a follow-up to what happens after this investment, this public infrastructure investment. So again, we are investing in your community to enhance the economic development capacity or ability in your community. And so we want to make sure that everybody's thinking about how they can sort of use this as a way to catalyze more investment in your community. So those are things that we're going to be looking at in your application. So as I said, the application will be due July 29th by 5 p.m. and you will submit it to myself, and we will start to review them from there and be in conversation with you. And as I said, you should call myself or email us, and we will set up a meeting to talk about your application. So here is a little bit more about Great Blocks. So just to sort of emphasize why this is much more of why we need to have conversations with you. These are much more intensive design and engineering, leading to much larger transformations in your community. You should be talking with us about how to do these. These are just going to be radical changes. It's going to be a comprehensive redevelopment and validation of your core area of your commercial district. you can see that these projects are much more intensive. So again, you'll be applying even in a Great Blocks application. You will be first applying for the construction documents. And then in the second phase, you should be securing funding to actually complete the construction. And in the third phase of these projects, you will be working with us, myself, and our technical assistance that we provide to make sure that there is going to be additional investments happening in your community as the project goes on. And these are important because what we do in terms of getting these funds to make it available to you is to show that these investments in your community catalyze more additional investments from the private sector into your community. And we want to make sure that you're understanding that and that you have ways to measure this impact in your community. And this is also why we also collect quarterly reports, is to see the baseline of what's happening right now in your community, and then after an investment like this into your community, what's happening to see the performance. So when you're in a Great Blocks program and you're in a grant, it's going to be a long-term commitment from yourself, from your local organization and your local government. And this is because we are providing a lot of resources, not just in terms of the funding to actually complete the project, but also in terms of how much time we will be spending with you in your community to make sure that these projects are completed and that they're making the most benefit that they can. And again, these are just sort of examples of how these things will happen, kinds of things that they will, kind of improvements that will be made in your community. Okay, so I will sort of I just want to show you the application really quickly and show you how this will work. So let me change this. No. All right. So this is what you'll be seeing later this afternoon. And you can just go through and fill out this at like any other application. You'll be checking where you are and what kind of project you're applying for. And there'll be check boxes that you just fill in. And then you'll give us some basic information about your project. Is it listed on your ICIP? Is it going to be completed within the amount of time that the grant is going to be given? And then you'll select your phase and those kinds of things. So a lot of this is self-explanatory, and there's a lot of, just make sure you're reading all the instructions. And you will also be providing a narrative. So there's certain parts of this where you will fill in a text box, and then there's going to be certain things that you need to attach as attachments. So like, obviously, like it's going to be hard to put in a map into this document. So those kinds of things are stuff that you can submit as attachments for your application. And now I'll open it up to questions.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So we're in a construction project right now. We're about 50% complete on the first and second phase of the railroad district project. And so the timing of this is like, we had the fires, then we had rain, but now they're back out there today working. So the timing is going to be really tight, and because we want to apply for the rest, phase 3 and 4, to do the other 2 blocks in this application process. So I'm just saying, I guess there might be some overlap.
That's okay, Michael. You guys are in a Great Blocks project, so it's expected that not everything is complete because you're doing things in phases. And we will set up a meeting to check in with you all on where you're at. to make sure everything will get done. So you can apply, and we will set up a meeting to go over with you where you are and how much you should apply for and what phases we think we can get done. Does that
Okay,
make sense?
great. Thanks.
No problem. Are there any other questions?
Lucas, this is Brandon Howell, Council of Governments in Gallup. Can you speak a little more about kind of the private commitment as part of the Great Blocks? We have a project here in Gallup that I had thought might work for Great Blocks, but we didn't really think about the private side of redevelopment. We have a outdoor performance area that we are looking to redesign and update the infrastructure, but we weren't really looking at the private side of things.
So what we mean by looking at the private side of things is really to know that there's going to be a benefit to the private sector in this. So we're not asking for actual commitments from the private sector that they will invest in something right after this. But what we're looking for is that you have ideas about how this project is going to benefit the local businesses and the private sector. Does that make sense? So in your application, yes, you'll have a way to sort of talk about those things. And if you're applying for a Great Blocks project, then you should be having these conversations with us, and we can guide you in the right direction in terms of if it's going to be a project we can fund, if it makes sense. But it sounds like a project like that is exactly what we're looking for, because it is in your downtown district, correct?
Yes, it's in our downtown district. It's one of our main priority projects in our MRA plan as well. And so there's definitely a need to redesign the performance area, but also there's still the possibility of street redesign, beautification components that could be added to that as well, that surround that performance arts area.
All right. And you're working with your local Main Street program on this, correct?
Yes. Okay. I believe he's on right now.
Right.
The second question I have is, we also, the city of Gallup has invested heavily in downtown and the downtown district in recent years. We have current projects going on. Is there the possibility that, we could, with, of course, the city's approval and the city's support, apply for large infrastructure, but also apply for Great Blocks to get design going on a new project?
You will have to apply for one category. And if you're going for Great Blocks, I would say you're probably looking at more of a large category application. And you can apply for the design funding through that avenue.
Because we have
Great Blocks. Go ahead.
We have an alleyway project, downtown alleyway revitalization project that we're working on now that has design completed. We're just looking for construction dollars. We had thought possibly we would broach the idea of applying for large infrastructure for the alleyways for construction, and then hopefully start with planning, kind of a community-based planning approach for the performance arts area through Great Blocks. I don't know if that's allowable or not.
Yeah, so we would have to go for one or the other.
Okay.
So if which I feel like we already are investing into the alleyway project. So yeah, that's we can have a conversation with you guys when we set up a meeting. But yeah, you would have to either apply for design or the construction funds.
Gotcha. And then my last question, sorry to take up so much time. What forms of cash are allowable? Could we pair Main Street capital outlay with general legislative capital outlay?
You can, is generally not the ideal, but I think given that there's already a lot of investment going on in your downtown, I think that'll be okay in your case. So the cash match, like I said, we don't generally want to turn folks away for not having cash up front. But if you are showing us that there's a big commitment, which there is in Gallup, we know there's a lot of commitment to actually revitalizing the downtown. we can have those conversations and make sure that we just really want it. We're just really interested in showing that the local community is invested in doing this work, and it's not just our money going into the downtown.
Understood.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I had a question about the categories. Just you know,
Sure.
if a project encompasses multiple categories, still we should just pick one category that best describes it.
Yeah, so each project should be starting with, so if you're just starting out and so you're in grants, if you're just
Yeah.
starting out a project, you will start in the design phase.
Certainly.
And so if you're, let's say if you're further along in your construction, you'll sort of, you'll see in the application, there are questions that are about the design phase, but you should just go through all of them and fill it all out. But where you're going to be starting is going to be in the design, and it should be, and you should have a goal of what the end product should cost, and that's what will decide what, if you're going to be small, medium, large, or in great blocks. But I think you guys are going to be in either the small or medium large.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right, any more questions? Don't be shy. This is, we want to work with you all to make sure you have quality applications and everybody's getting in line and on our pipeline. This is also a good year to start just talking conversations with us, because next year we will be, this year we obviously will be able to fund quite a few projects, and we want to make sure that there's going to be more projects coming down the pipeline. So feel free to ask any questions. And, you know, like I said, this is a partnership with you all, and we want to develop these projects. So.
Hey, Lucas.
Thank you.
I saw that you mentioned that you would be helping Main Street programs apply for Fund It if we are exceeding the cap. Did you want to, and I know that not everybody's familiar with Fund It, so I wondered if you wanted to talk about that a little bit and what that opportunity looks like and what the funding sources available there might be.
Sure. Great question, Christina. So Fund It is a platform basically that it's a venue where communities can pitch their projects to a group of folks who have funding for different kinds of capital outlay projects. So what we will do with you is, after we have a good application from you and you have designs that are ready to go, and let's say your project is going to cost $2 million instead of what we can fund, you know, we might be able to give you $900,000 in a given year. So what we will do is help you go and pitch it to the funded group, and there they will help figure out what kinds of grants you can apply for and position you to get your project fully funded. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Is there any other questions? These are great. I'm glad you guys are participating. We don't want anybody to feel like they shouldn't apply. We want to talk to you all and make sure everybody's getting in line. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, I will send an email out with the application and this presentation. Feel free to reach out if you have any more questions. And when you're ready to apply, if you feel like you're going to apply this year, we encourage you to do so and reach out to us, and we will set up a meeting to make sure you are applying in the right category and for the right amount. And we look forward to working with you. All right, everybody, have a good day.
Thank you, Lucas.
Thanks, Lucas.
Thanks.